Now we are going to complete Annexure 1. As you can see, Annexure 1 is basically page 283, 284, 285, 286 and 287 in my book. First, let us understand what we are trying to learn. This actually we are already completed. If you look at my book, page number 41, we are already completed these rules. The name of the rule was Central Excise Removal of Good at Concessional Rate of Duty for Manufacture of Excisable Goods Rules 2001. That we have studied on page 41, 42, 43. We have already studied that. These rules have been substituted from 16th March 2016. So up to 15th March 2016, old rules are applicable, and from 16th March 2016, new rules are applicable. Little bad situation for students. Two categories of rules we'll have to understand, but that's the way it is. So let us try to understand the new rules. Before that, before we understand, let us try to remember what we are talking about. एक एग्जाम्पल मैंने दिया था जब मैंने ओल्ड रूल्स एक्सप्लेन किए थे. मैंने एक एग्जाम्पल दिया था. मैं एक बार वो एग्जाम्पल रिपीट करता हूँ. सेंट्रल एक्साइज टैरिफ एक्ट. देयर इज गुड्स कॉल्ड केमिकल एक्स. ड्यूटी रिटर्न इज 10%, and there is goods called swine flu medicine. Duty rate is 10%. How the manufacturing is done by swine flu medicine manufacturer? He is bringing chemical X, 100 plus 10, 110. He is taking Sinvat credit of 10 rupees. Chemical X is using for manufacture of swine flu medicine. For example, his cost of inputs is 100, his other cost is 50, his profit margin is 50, so his selling price is 200. I'll repeat. Cost of input is 100, 100 plus 10, 110. He has taken Sinvat credit of 10 rupees. Cost of input is 100. Other cost is 50 rupees and his profit margin is 50 rupees. So his selling price was 200. But he has manufactured swine flu medicine. He has excise duty liability. So his excise duty liability was 20 rupees, 220. Swine flu medicine was becoming available in the market for 220 rupees. But there was a swine flu epidemic, people are suffering, agitations took place, and government want to reduce the price. They cannot amend CCR because parliament is not in session. So what is the alternative? They have issued exemption notification. Under section 5A1, they have issued exemption notification exempting swine flu medicine from 100% duty. Now, CCR read with exemption notification, swine flu medicine has become exempt goods. You are expecting that prices will come down by 20 rupees, but to our surprise, prices have not come down by 20 rupees. They have come down by 10 rupees. And what is the reason? They have purchased chemical X 100 plus 10, 110. Now their final product has become exempt. So Sinvat credit is not available. Cost of input has become 110. Other cost remaining the same 50 rupees. Profit margin remaining the same 50 rupees. Selling price has become 210. Because final product is exempt, there is no excise duty liability and chemical X will become available in the market for 210. We expected that price will come down by 20 rupees, whereas price has come down by only 10 rupees. And what is the reason? Who is the culprit? The culprit is chemical X excise duty. Now, how to reduce the prices further? Government will have to issue one more exemption notification under 5A1, exempting chemical X from excise duty. But there is a problem. Chemical X has many other uses. At that point of time, under section 5A1, government will come out with a conditional exemption notification for chemical X. Government will say in the exemption notification, chemical X is exempt from excise duty subject to condition that it is used for manufacture of swine flu medicine. and that is called as end use based exemption notification, and that is point of time when these rules are required. Here chemical X has been exempted from excise duty 100%, but subject to condition that it is used for manufacture of swine flu medicine. So now this is the situation handled by these rules. Let us understand these rules. I am on page 283. I am talking about Annexure 1, new rules. Central excise removal of goods at concessional rate of duty for manufacture of excisable and other goods rules 2016. It is a notification number 20 of 2016, which is dated 1/3/2016. Short title, extent and commencement. The name of the rules, the new rules. The rules may be called Central Excise Removal of Good at Concessional Rate of Duty for Manufacture of Excisable and Other Goods Rules 2016. They shall come into force from 16th day March 2016. Old rules were applicable up to 15th March 2016. New rules will come in force from 16th March 2016. Application. These rules shall apply to manufacturer who intends to avail benefit of notification issued under subsection 1 of section 5A of Central Excise Act 1944, granting exemption of duty of excisable goods when used for purpose specified in that notification. If you are a manufacturer of swine flu medicine and if you want to buy chemical X without excise duty, then these rules are for you. That is what he is trying to say. Provided that unregistered manufacturer, including manufacturer of exempt goods or non-excisable goods, shall be eligible to avail the benefit of the provision of these rules after taking registration under Rule 9 of Central Excise Rules. Please try to understand. I have set up a factory where I am going to manufacture swine flu medicine. Swine flu medicine is exempt from excise duty. If you remember Rule 9, we have studied in Rule 9 that if you are a manufacturer of exempt goods, registration is not required. All what you are supposed to do is to give declaration in specified forms. Now here, if you are going to manufacture swine flu medicine, your registration as manufacturer is not required, but your registration as user of chemical X will become required. Here he says, provided that if you are unregistered manufacturer and you want to come in these rules, first thing you will have to do is to register yourself. I will repeat my point once again. यहाँ पे मैंने एक example रखा था that you are going to manufacture swine flu medicine, and just now मैंने बोला था swine flu medicine has been exempted from excise duty. So if swine flu medicine is exempted from excise duty, registration is not required. But if you want to come in this rule, you will have to get registered yourself. Are you registered as manufacturer of swine flu medicine? No. You are registered as user of chemical X. That is the point. Definitions. In these rules, unless the context otherwise required, applicant manufacturer means a manufacturer who intend to receive goods specified use at concessional rate of duty. In my example, swine flu medicine manufacturer is called as applicant manufacturer. वो बोलता है applicant manufacturer means a manufacturer who intend to receive goods for specified use at concessional rate of duty. My example, you are swine flu medicine manufacturer. Subject goods means sorry. Subject goods means excisable goods which applicant manufacturer intends to procure at concessional rate of duty. In my example, you are trying to get chemical X without excise duty. Then chemical X will be called as subject goods. Supplier manufacturer means a manufacturer who supplies excisable goods at concessional rate of duty to the applicant manufacturer. So chemical X का जो manufacturer है उसको हम लोग supplier manufacturer बोलेंगे. 3 definitions है. फिर उसके बाद में उसका प्रोसीजर है। मैंने एक काम किया है, प्रोसीजर 285 पे दे दिया है आपको, पेज नंबर 285 पे मैंने प्रोसीजर दिया है, और इंग्लिश में प्रोसीजर को पढ़ेंगे पेज 284 के ऊपर। चलो दोनों को साथ में पढ़ते हैं। रूल 4, इंफॉर्मेशन बाय एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर टू ऑब्टेन बेनिफिट। पहले आप जरा एक बार समझना, एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर, मेरे वाले केस में स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन का जो मैन्युफैक्चरर है उसको हम लोग एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर बोलेंगे। सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चरर, केमिकल एक्स का जो मैन्युफैक्चरर है उसको सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चरर बोलेंगे। एक मिनट के लिए इमेजिन करना, स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन का जो मैन्युफैक्चरर है वो मुंबई में है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल केमिकल एक्स का जो मैन्युफैक्चरर है वो पूना में है। बात को समझना, ये एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चर के ऊपर एक डिफरेंट असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर का जुरिस्डिक्शन है, और ये मैन्युफैक्चर के ऊपर एक डिफरेंट सुपरिटेंडेंट ऑफ सेंट्रल एक्साइज का जुरिस्डिक्शन है। पॉइंट को समझते हैं, व्हाट इज द क्रक्स ऑफ दिस प्रोसीजर। केमिकल एक्स इज गोइंग टू गेट रिमूव्ड फ्रॉम दिस फैक्ट्री विदाउट पेमेंट ऑफ ड्यूटी. It is going to come to Mumbai factory and it is going to get used for manufacture of swine flu medicine, and on this factory this superintendent has no control. How on earth he will come to know कि कितना chemical X निकला था यहाँ से, और whether it is used for swine flu medicine or whether it is sold in the market or whether it is used for any other manufacturing activity. Please understand, chemical X has been exempted from excise duty only for one specified purpose, if it is used for swine flu medicine. If it is used for any other purpose, excise duty is payable. So crux of the procedure, यहाँ से कितना chemical X without payment of excise duty निकला, क्या वो यहाँ पे आया, और whether it is used for proper purpose, प्रोसीजर हैज़ टू बी डिजाइंड इन सच अ वे। द प्रॉब्लम, दोनों फैक्ट्रीज के ऊपर जुरिस्डिक्शन अलग अलग ऑफिसर्स का है। सो लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड द प्रोसीजर। एन एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर, मतलब स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन का मैन्युफैक्चरर, एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर शैल प्रोवाइड एन इंफॉर्मेशन इन डुप्लीकेट इन फॉर्म नंबर I Roman 1, in form number Roman 1, to the jurisdictional assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, and ACDC shall forward one copy of information to jurisdictional range superintendent to supplier manufacturer. बात को समझते हैं। For example, I want chemical X worth 10,000, on which normally excise duty liability is 1,000, but I will get it without payment of excise duty liability because I am going to use it for manufacture of swine flu medicine. So ये एप्लीकेंट अपने असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर को एक एप्लीकेशन देगा, उसमें ये सब फैक्ट्स लिखेगा, सर आई वांट केमिकल एक्स वर्थ 10,000 एंड आई वांट इट विदाउट एक्साइज ड्यूटी बिकॉज आई एम गोइंग टू यूज इट फॉर मैन्युफैक्चर ऑफ स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन। फॉर्म नंबर रोमन 1 में इन डुप्लीकेट एप्लीकेशन बनाएगा और दोनों कॉपीज अपने असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर को देगा। असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर एक कॉपी अपने पास रखेगा और एक कॉपी वो सुपरिटेंडेंट ऑफ सेंट्रल एक्साइज हैविंग जुरिस्डिक्शन ओवर पूना फैक्ट्री को दे देगा। इसका मतलब ये हुआ, नाउ सुपरिटेंडेंट ऑफ सेंट्रल एक्साइज हैविंग जुरिस्डिक्शन ओवर दिस फैक्ट्री नोज दैट केमिकल एक्स विल बी रिमूव्ड फ्रॉम दिस फैक्ट्री विदाउट पेमेंट ऑफ एक्साइज ड्यूटी, एंड this commissioner, मेरा एक अलग officer of the same department, has full control. I need not worry about excise duty liability. Please understand the crux of the procedure. Now this superintendent of central excise knows that chemical X has been removed from this factory without payment of excise duty, and some other central excise officer has full knowledge about this fact and he will take care. I am out of it. That is the matlab of this procedure. एक पॉइंट नंबर 5 पहले पढ़ लेते। द एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर शैल एग्जीक्यूट जनरल बॉन्ड विथ श्योरिटी। इसमें ड्यूटी लायबिलिटी कितना इन्वॉल्व है, 1,000 रुपीज का। ही विल गिव बॉन्ड ऑफ 1,000 विथ श्योरिटी। द वर्ड सिक्योरिटी इज नॉट देयर, ओनली बॉन्ड ऑफ 1,000 प्लस श्योरिटी वर्ड है, सिक्योरिटी वर्ड मिसिंग है। ओके, ये बॉन्ड का क्या मतलब हुआ, सर मैं वादा करता हूँ ये जो केमिकल एक्स मैं लेके आ रहा हूँ I will use it only for manufacture of swine flu medicine. But kal chal ke, tomorrow if you come to know that I have used it for any other purpose, sir, you can recover that 1000 rupees excise duty from you. That is the bond this manufacturer is giving. So, to conclude, first step, applicant manufacturer will give form in Roman 1 to officer having jurisdiction over his factory. Along with the application, he will also give a bond with surety. This officer will keep one copy with himself and will submit duplicate copy to the superintendent of central excise having jurisdiction over supplier manufacturer. The applicant manufacturer shall number the information filed under sub-rule 1 in each financial year. Every time in one financial year you may require chemical X from time to time. So whenever you ask for new lot of chemical X, first time when you gave the application it was Roman 1 ka first part, then it can be Roman 1-2, Roman 1-3, Roman 1-4. So many times you will require chemical X. Every time you will have to give fresh form Roman 1 and you have to number it serially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Applicant manufacturer may either provide separate information in respect of each supplier manufacturer of subject goods or provide combined information for multiple supplier manufacturer with details of each of them in form 1. Suppose I am getting chemical X from 3 different suppliers. I can file different forms for different suppliers, or I can file one form giving details of all the suppliers. The applicant manufacturer shall provide the information from time to time to receive subject goods in quantities commensurate with expected consumption in the manufacturing process for a period of 1 year or less. Whenever chemical X is received, you have to inform it to your officer. Whenever you have consumed it, you have to inform it to your officer. Whatever is the closing stock of chemical X, you have to inform it to your officer. 5 नंबर का पॉइंट बॉन्ड वाला वो हमने ऑलरेडी कवर किया है. Whenever you get chemical X of the duty involved, you have to give bond. But उसमें एक प्रोवाइजो है. मैं पहले आपको प्रोवाइजो का क्रक्स बताता हूँ. अभी मैंने बोला था कि whenever you get chemical X of the duty involved, you have to give bond. But if you are innocent manufacturer, then bond formalities are not required. Only LUT, letter of undertaking, is enough. What do you mean by innocent manufacturer? अगर आपके ऊपर सेंट्रल एक्साइज एक्ट के सेक्शन 11A के अंदर कोई भी प्रोसीडिंग चालू नहीं है, अगर आपके ऊपर सेंट्रल एक्साइज रूल 12CCC के अंदर कोई भी प्रोसीडिंग चालू नहीं है, और अगर आपके ऊपर सिनोवैट क्रेडिट रूल 12AA के अंदर कोई भी प्रोसीडिंग चालू नहीं है, तो मैं आपको इनोसेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर बोलूँगा. यहाँ पे मैंने 12CCC दिया है जो कि सेंट्रल एक्साइज रूल का एक रूल है. मैंने 12AAA दिया है जो कि सिनोवैट क्रेडिट का रूल है. एक बार मैं आपको ये 12CCC और 12AAA का क्रक्स बताता हूँ. अगर गवर्नमेंट इज ऑफ द ओपिनियन that you have done something terribly wrong under central excise rule on some particular manufacturer, central government can put certain restrictions under 12CCC. That is what 12CCC is saying. मैं एक बार रिपीट करता हूँ. If you have violated any of the central excise rules, if you are that kind of a manufacturer, 12CCC gives authority to government to put certain restrictions on that manufacturer. Same here, 12AAA. If you have done something terribly wrong in Sinvat credit rules, 12AAA gives authority to central government to put certain restrictions under Sinvat credit rules on that manufacturer. And what is 11A? अगर सेंट्रल एक्साइज एक्ट के कोई प्रोविजंस आपने ब्रेक किए हैं तो 11A के अंदर शो कॉज नोटिस इशू करके ऑफिसर प्रोसीडिंग चालू करता है. अभी मैं आपको एग्जाम्पल करके 2 नाम लेता हूँ. एक है इनोसेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर, एक है फ्रॉड मैन्युफैक्चरर. फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ दिस आई विल डिफाइन फ्रॉड मैन्युफैक्चरर. इफ यू हैव ब्रोकन सर्टन रूल्स अंडर सेंट्रल एक्साइज एक्ट, under section 11A certain proceedings must have been started against you. you are a fraud manufacturer. If you are broken certain central excise rules, then under 12 triple C of central excise rules, some proceedings must have been started against you. You are a fraud manufacturer. If you have broken some SINVAT credit rules under 12 triple A of SINVAT credit rules, some proceedings must have started against you. You are a fraud manufacturer. But if none of these proceedings are started, I will call you innocent manufacturer. Proviso बोलता है, if you are an innocent manufacturer, bond is not required, only LUT is enough. But if you are a fraud manufacturer, you have no option but to give the bond. 4.6. The applicant manufacturer shall forward a copy of information duly signed by his authorized signatory to supplier manufacturer for procuring the goods. आपने एक बार ये फॉर्मेलिटी कंप्लीट किया, आपने फॉर्म नंबर रोमन 1 दे दिया, आपने बॉन्ड या LUT दे दिया, अभी आप आपकी परचेस ऑर्डर प्लेस कर सकते हो. That was the procedure for applicant manufacturer. I have completed rule 4. Now, I am talking about rule 5. Rule 5 is talking about procedure to be followed by supplier manufacturer. ये जो supplier manufacturer है उसने कैसे काम करना है. The supplier manufacturer shall avail the benefit of this notification on the basis of information received by him under sub-rule 6 of rule 5. Supplier manufacturer shall maintain records of information received under sub-rule 1 on the basis of which goods have been removed. The removal details such as number and dates of invoice, description, quantity and value of subject goods and amount of excise duty paid at concessional rate and retain the same in his records. एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर ने ऑर्डर दे दिया, उसके साथ में उसने डिटेल फॉर्म्स दे दिए. सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चरर उतना क्वांटिटी प्रोड्यूस करेगा, विदाउट पेमेंट ऑफ एक्साइज ड्यूटी उसको रिमूव करेगा, उसको सप्लाई कर देगा और इनवॉइस वाइज रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन करेगा कि कितना केमिकल एक्स मैंने सप्लाई किया था विदाउट पेमेंट ऑफ ड्यूटी. सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चरर्स के ऊपर ये ऑब्लिगेशंस है. रूल 6. एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर टू सबमिट क्वार्टरली रिटर्न्स. यहाँ पे 10,000 रुपये का केमिकल एक्स आ गया, कितना क्वांटिटी ऑफ केमिकल एक्स हैज़ बीन रिसीव्ड, कितना क्वांटिटी ऑफ केमिकल एक्स हैज़ बीन यूज्ड इन द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस एंड व्हाट क्वांटिटी ऑफ केमिकल एक्स इज देयर इन द क्लोजिंग स्टॉक. एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर हैज़ टू फाइल क्वार्टरली रिटर्न्स. यहाँ पे वो लिखता है रूल 6. एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर टू सबमिट क्वार्टरली रिटर्न्स. The applicant manufacturer shall, receiving the subject goods, maintain an account indicating the quantity and value of subject goods, quantity of subject goods consumed for the intended purpose, quantity remaining in stock, invoice wise, and shall submit a quarterly return on the basis of such records in form number 2, Roman 2, to the assistant commissioner या deputy commissioner by the 10th day of the following month of each quarter of the financial year. एक एडिशनल ऑब्लिगेशन है एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर के ऊपर, उसको एक रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा. कितना स्वाइन फ्लू केमिकल मेरे पास आया, ओपनिंग स्टॉक कितना था, मेरे पास नया परचेसेस कितना है, कितना मैंने उसको यूज़ किया, मेरा क्लोजिंग स्टॉक कितना है, वैल्यू और क्वांटिटी वाइज उसको रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा एंड उसको क्वार्टरली रिटर्न्स फाइल करना पड़ेगा टू हिज असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर. रूल 7. रिकवरी ऑफ ड्यूटी इन सर्टन केसेस. यहाँ पे वो लिखता है अगर हमें पता चला कि केमिकल एक्स जो सब्जेक्ट गुड्स था उसका आपने अगर अनइंटेंडेड यूज़ कर लिया तो हम आपसे ड्यूटी विथ इंटरेस्ट वसूल करेंगे. यहाँ पे वो लिखता है अगर केमिकल एक्स एक्सेस था, अगर केमिकल एक्स सरप्लस था तो आप उसको रिटर्न कर सकते हैं. यहाँ पे वो लिखता है कि अगर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में केमिकल एक्स लॉस हो गया या तो स्टोर रूम में केमिकल एक्स लॉस हो गया तो भी हम सोचेंगे कि वो अनइंटेंडेड पर्पस था. इसका मतलब है इंटेंडेड पर्पस का एक ही मतलब है यूजिंग इट फॉर मैन्युफैक्चर ऑफ केमिकल, यूजिंग इट फॉर मैन्युफैक्चर ऑफ इंटेंडेड पर्पस, दैट इज स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन. एक बार रिपीट करता हूँ. इंटेंडेड पर्पस का एक ही मतलब है, आप केमिकल एक्स लेके आए और आपने उसको मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन के लिए अगर आपने यूज़ किया तो आपके ऊपर कोई कार्रवाई नहीं होगी। बट अगर हमें पता चला कि आपने केमिकल एक्स को अनइंटेंडेड पर्पस के लिए यूज़ किया तो ऑल द ड्यूटी विथ इंटरेस्ट यू विल हैव टू पे। व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय अनइंटेंडेड पर्पस? Selling of chemical X in the market, unintended purpose, using chemical X for manufacturing of some other goods, unintended purpose, chemical X lost in transportation, unintended purpose, chemical X lost in storeroom, also unintended purpose. But if you have found that chemical X is deficient या chemical X is surplus, you can always use and you will have no excise duty liability. यहाँ पे एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट अमेंडमेंट है नए रूल्स में। 11A में शोकॉज नोटिस इशू करने के लिए नॉर्मली टाइम लिमिट रहता है 1 ईयर, बट ये वाले ऑफेंस में 1 ईयर का टाइम लिमिट भी नहीं है। एक बार इसको पढ़ते हैं। रूल 7, रिकवरी ऑफ ड्यूटी इन सर्टन केसेस वेयर द गुड्स क्लियर्ड बाय द सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चरर ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइडेड बाय द एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर are not used for intended purpose, the applicant manufacturer shall be liable to pay the amount equal to difference between the duty leviable on such goods but for exemption and the already paid, if any, at the time of removal from the factory of the supplier manufacturer of the subject good, along with the interest and the provisions of section 11A, except the time limit mentioned in the said section for demanding duty and section 11AA of the said act shall apply mutatis mutandis for effecting such recoveries. अगर हमें पता चला कि chemical X has been used for unintended purpose under section 11A, will issue you show cause notice and will recover that duty from you with interest under 11AA, and in fact 11A का जो 1 ईयर या 5 ईयर का टाइम लिमिट रहता है वो भी आपको एप्लीकेबल नहीं है। 10 साल के बाद भी हमें पता चला तो भी हम आपसे ड्यूटी विथ इंटरेस्ट वसूल करके रहेंगे। वेरी स्पेशल प्रोविजन, टाइम limit of 1 year or the 5 year as the case may be is not applicable, provided that where applicant manufacturer is found to be non-existent, the supplier manufacturer shall be liable to pay the amount equal to difference between duty liability etc. if any at the time of removal etc. along with interest and the provisions of section 11A except the time limit mentioned in the said section and section 11AA of the said act mutatis mutandis for effecting such recovery. Very different provision this time. अगर हमें पता चला कि केमिकल एक्स आपने आपके फैक्ट्री से रिमूव किया विदाउट पेमेंट ऑफ एक्साइज ड्यूटी, बट आपने एविडेंट केयर नहीं लिया था, एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चर है नहीं, एक फ्रॉड एक धोखा है, तो इवन सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चरर को भी हम लोग शो कॉज नोटिस इशू करेंगे अंडर सेक्शन 11A और उससे विथ इंटरेस्ट अंडर सेक्शन 11AA एक्साइज ड्यूटी वसूल करेंगे और उसके लिए भी 1 ईयर टाइम लिमिट नहीं है। इसका मतलब ये हुआ अगर एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चर के एंड पर अनइंटेंडेड यूज हुआ तो भी 11A 11AA रिकवरी ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, रिकवरी ऑफ ड्यूटी विथ इंटरेस्ट विदाउट एनी टाइम लिमिट, और अगर एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट निकला मतलब फ्रॉड सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चर ने किया था तो भी 11A के अंदर शो कॉज नोटिस, रिकवरी ऑफ ड्यूटी विथ इंटरेस्ट अंडर 11AA and here also no time limit. Very special provisions here in rule 7. Provided further that if subject goods on receipt are found to be defective or damaged or unsuitable or surplus to the needs of the applicant manufacturer, he may return the subject goods to the supplier manufacturer and every such returned good shall be added to non-duty paid. We already know this. On receipt of chemical X, if it was found to be deficient or surplus, always you can return it and supplier manufacturer can add it to his non-duty paid goods. Explanation. For the removal of doubts, hereby clarified that subject goods shall deem to not have been used for intended purpose, even if any of the quantity of the subject good is lost or destroyed by natural causes or by unavoidable accident during the transportation from the place of procurement to the applicant manufacture premises or from the supplier manufacture premises to the place of procurement or during handling or storage in the applicant manufacture premises. केमिकल एक्स का इंटेंडेड पर्पस एक ही है, यूज इन मैन्युफैक्चर ऑफ स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन। एनी अदर रीजन इंक्लूडिंग getting it destroyed in the transportation or destroyed in storage will be considered as unintended purpose and duty with interest will become payable. That is what explanation is saying. मैंने रूल 8 रिडंडेंट है, उसका कोई मतलब नहीं है, बट यहाँ पे मैंने दो एनालिसिस किए, पेज नंबर 287 के ऊपर मैंने उसके दो एनालिसिस किए। ये पहला वाला एनालिसिस हमने पेज 41 के ऊपर भी एक बार देखा था। You have procured chemical X at concessional rate of duty and you have actually used it for intended purpose, no problem, you have no duty liability. But what do you mean by non-utilization for intended purpose? What do you mean by that? Diverted towards production of some other goods, unintended purpose, duty with interest will become payable. Sold into the market, unintended purpose, duty with interest will become payable. Utilization found to be infeasible, therefore return to the supplier allowed है, no duty no interest। केमिकल एक्सेस होने के कारण आपने उसको रिटर्न कर दिया, no problem, this is allowed, no duty no interest। Loss of goods irrespective of the reason including normal and abnormal will be considered as unintended purpose and duty and interest will become payable। What is the difference between the old rules and the new rules basically? यहाँ पे मैंने उसको डिस्कस किया है। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वेरी सिंपल एंड ऑब्वियस, नेम ऑफ द रूल हैज चेंज। सेकंड, केमिकल स्वाइन फ्लू मेडिसिन मैन्युफैक्चरर, मतलब अपने केस में जो एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर है उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन का के बारे में न्यू रूल्स में क्लियर मार्किंग है। यहाँ पे वो लिखता है, इफ यू आर एप्लीकेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर वी हैव टू सी टू इट दैट यू आर रजिस्टर्ड। फॉर अनरजिस्टर्ड मैन्युफैक्चरर इंक्लूडिंग मैन्युफैक्चर ऑफ एग्जाम गुड्स और नॉन एक्साइजेबल गुड्स टेकिंग रजिस्ट्रेशन अंडर रूल 9 ऑफ सेंट्रल एक्साइज रूल्स 2002 was implied in the old rules, now it is clearly mentioned in the rules। थर्ड है, बेसिक प्रोसीजर है चेंज। वहाँ पे वो 4 कॉपीज बनते थे और उसका सर्कुलेशन था, यहाँ पे प्रोसीजर एकदम अलग है। रोमन 1 में आपको फॉर्म नंबर AC को देना है विथ श्योरिटी एंड बॉन्ड। इफ़ यू आर इनोसेंट मैन्युफैक्चरर यू हैव टू गिव इट विथ LUT। वो असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर एक कॉपी अपने पास रखेगा, एक कॉपी सुपरिटेंडेंट ऑफ सेंट्रल एक्साइज हैविंग जुरिस्डिक्शन ओवर सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चर को दे देगा। और फिर वो जो नया प्रोसीजर है वो प्रोसीजर चेंज हुआ है। और एक चेंज हुआ है, वेयर द गुड्स आर क्लियर्ड बाय द सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चर, वो टाइम लिमिट वाला इशू। इफ ड्यूटी if the goods are used for unintended purpose, 11A and 11AA was even applicable in the old rules also, but in the new rules they are applicable without any time limit। And the last change, supplier अगर applicant manufacturer non existing मिला, मतलब फ्रॉड अगर सप्लायर मैन्युफैक्चर ने किया है तो भी सेक्शन 11A एंड 11AA विल बिकम एप्लीकेबल एंड विदाउट टाइम लिमिट। These 2, 5 and 6 number are the most important changes। Please study old rule once, please study new rules once and have reference to what is the change. This may help you to remember the rules। Please complete all these pages up to page number 287। Please complete annexure 1। Now let us complete annexure 2। Basically this annexure 2 also we have done it once। If you see in my book page 146 was the definition of input service distributor and page 147 was rule 7 of Sinvat credit rules। We have already done this। This was the old portion which was applicable up to 31st March। Rule 7 of Sinvat credit rule has been changed and it is now substituted by new rule from 1st April 2016 and up to the period 31st March old rule is applicable। Up to the period 31st March 2016 old rule 7 is applicable and from 1st April 2016 new rule 7 is applicable। For our attempt we have to remember both। Logically examiner should ask only amended questions, so now safely I can see that only question can come in the examination will be for April 2016 In that case, rule 7 is applicable. Anyway, let us try to understand new rule 7 once again. Before that, let us revise the concept of input service distributor. We have already studied this. What is input service distributor? What is input service distributor? For example, I am talking from manufacturer's point of view. If it is a manufacturer, learn it as factory. If it is a service provider, learn it as premises from where I am providing the services. For example, manufacturer. This is my factory. Factory 1 maybe in Mumbai. And this factory is manufacturing dutiable goods. I have another factory, factory 2. Factory 2 is maybe at Nashik and it is manufacturing exam goods. And I have one more factory, for example, factory 3. Say it is at Pune and it is also manufacturing dutiable goods. And I have one head office. Head office is in Mumbai, Bandra Kurla complex. This is the office from where all administrative work is taken care of. From this office, neither any service provided nor any manufacturing activities are undertaken, but all administrative, accounting, advertisement and all related kind, legal, compliance, everything is done from the head office. No manufacturing at head office. Manufacturing is only in the factories. Now sometimes it may happen that some service provider may provide a service at factory. Some service provider has provided a service which was exclusively for factory 1, but he has issued invoice on head office. Service charge plus service tax. Based on this invoice, credit has been booked in head office. There is another possibility. Some service provider has provided a service which was common to all. This particular service was common to F1, F2 and F3. Some service provider has provided a service. The service was common for F1, F2 and F3, but he has also raised invoice on head office. Service charge plus service tax. This head office will book this credit. I am not saying he will avail the credit, because availment of Sinvat credit can be done only by the manufacturer and by the service provider. By some accounting entries, he will book the credit and in some ratio, he will distribute it over all the factories. In that case, this head office, we call it as input service distributor. So what is input service distributor? Head office or an office based on invoice which books the credit and in some ratio distribute it over all the premises or all the factories is input service distributor. Here on page number 288, again I have given the definition of input service distributor. There is one amendment in that. I have not touched that. Without that amendment, let us read page 288, definition of input service distributor. Input service distributor means an office of the manufacturer or provider of output service. If it is factories, learn it as manufacturer. If it is service providing, read it as service provider. An office of the manufacturer or the product of the final or provider of output service which receives invoices issued under section 4A of service tax rules towards purchase of input service. मैंने बोला था some service has been provided at factory 1 but invoice is raised on head office. So which receives the invoices and issues the invoices, bills as the case may be, challans for the purpose of distributing the credit of service tax paid of the said services to such manufacturer or the producer or provider or an outsourced manufacturing unit. This outsourced manufacturing unit we have not studied, but otherwise I have made my point. It's an head office based on invoice, it books the credit and in some ratio it distributes it over all the factories. That is what we call it as input service distributor. To this they have added the word outsourced manufacturer. What do you mean by outsourced manufacturer has been defined. The definition is on page number 290. Let us first complete that. Explanation 4 on page number 290 is giving the definition. First I will read that definition for you. For the purpose of this rule, outsourced manufacturing unit means a job worker First condition, he is a job worker. What do you mean by job worker? If he is working on principal inputs supplied by you, then I call him job worker. That is the definition of job worker. So my point is, if he is purchasing principal inputs from the market, he is not my job worker. To qualify as a job worker, he is supposed to work on inputs supplied by me. So outsource manufacturer, first and foremost condition, is a job worker who is liable to pay duty on value determined. Acha, that means he is the person liable to pay duty. Do you remember 214 of 86? Do you remember 214 of 86? Suppose I am the principal manufacturer and this is my job worker. I supply inputs to my job worker and it is the job worker who is converting inputs into final product. If this is true, then who is the manufacturer here? If you remember Vidyadhar prints, job worker is the manufacturer. Who is the person liable to pay excise duty? It is the job worker. Different is the issue that there is exemption notification 214 of 86. If you have completed the procedure of exemption notification 214 of 86, liability to pay excise duty is shifted on principal manufacturer. But no, not here. Here, because 214 of 86 procedure has not been completed, liability to pay excise duty is on the job worker. Mind you here, page number 290. He is a job worker. Please focus. And he is not working under 214 of 86. In other words, who is paying excise duty? Job worker is paying. To qualify as outsourced manufacturer, first of all, he has to be a job worker and he should be paying excise duty. That means he is not working under 214 of 86. So, first condition, he is a job worker. Who is person liable to pay? And excise duty is paid on value determined under Rule 10A of Central Excise Valuation Rules. This we have already studied. If goods are directly cleared from job worker's factory, valuation of goods is completed under Rule 10A of Central Excise Valuation Rules. So, abhi tak 3 conditions tak aa gaye. First of all, he is supposed to be a job worker. He is not working under 214 of 86, so he is paying excise duty liability. Valuation of the goods is completed under Rule 10A of Central Excise Valuation Rule. On the goods manufactured for the input service distributor or manufacturer bearing the brand name of such input service distributor and is liable to pay duty determined under section 4A of Excise Act. So many conditions, all these conditions are cumulatively satisfied. Then only he is an outsourced manufacturer. So he is a job worker, he is paying excise duty liability. Valuation of the goods is completed under Rule 10A of Central Excise Valuation Rule. Valuation is MRP based assessment. Then it is goods under the brand name of input service distributor. If all these conditions are satisfied, then we call him outsourced manufacturing unit. एक बार outsourced manufacturing unit के सब conditions एक बार देख लेते हैं. First of all, he is a job worker. He is paying excise duty liability. That means he is not working under 214 of 86. Valuation of the goods is completed under Rule 10A of Central Excise Valuation Rules. Goods are manufactured under the brand name of input service distributor and it is MRP based assessment. If all these conditions are satisfied, then we call him outsourced manufacturing unit. Let us understand practically what he is trying to say. Imagine a situation, I am Nike shoes. You call me input service distributor. I have 2 factories in India. One factory is my Mumbai factory. One factory is my Pune factory. Also, because of tremendous demand and I don't want to increase my infrastructure, I also have one job worker. Whatever shoes required for me, either they are getting manufactured in Mumbai, my own factory, or they are getting manufactured in my Pune factory, or they are being manufactured by my job worker. Whenever he manufacture the shoes, he is my job worker. Assessment of goods is under section 4A. Valuation is under rule 10A. He is manufacturing goods under my own brand name, then he is my outsourced manufacturer. Sinvat credit, input service distributor will be able to distribute over his own factories, also over the outsourced manufacturers also. Let us complete definition of input service distributor. Input service distributor means an office of the manufacturer or the service provider which receives the invoices and issues the invoices to distribute the credit of service tax paid on such services to his factories or to his premises or to his outsourced manufacturing unit. That is the definition of input service distributor. To the extent of outsourced manufacturing unit, it is amended. This is new concept introduced. We have completed definition of input service. Now let us learn how Rule 7 newly is designed. And for that, let us run along with one example. Okay. Let us learn Rule 7. I am on page 289. Manner of distribution of credit by input service distributor. That Sinvat credit which has been received at ISD, how it should be distributed. The input service distributor shall distribute the Sinvat credit in respect of service tax paid on input service to its manufacturing unit or unit providing output service or outsourced manufacturing unit as defined in explanation 4, subject to following conditions. अपना फैक्ट्रीज और आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट्स के ऊपर सिनवैट क्रेडिट वो कैसे डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेगा, आई एम गोइंग टू एक्सप्लेन यू. दैट इज व्हाट रूल 7 सेज. The credit distributed against a document referred to in Rule 9 does not exceed amount of service tax paid thereon. I think very logical and very simple. Agar as an ISD, I have received a invoice 1 lakh plus 14,500. 1 lakh 14,500. So what is the service tax element in this 14,500? So how much I can distribute? Total cannot be, of course, more than 14,500. It cannot be 14,501. Maximum what I can distribute is 14,500. Very logical. So first condition he says, point number A he says, the credit distributed against a document referred to in Rule 9 does not exceed the amount of service tax paid thereon. Okay with this? B, the credit of service tax attributable as input service to a particular unit shall be distributed only to that unit. एक बार इमेजिन करते हैं, एक इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर है, उसके 3 फैक्ट्रीज है और एक आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट है. एक बार रिपीट करता हूँ, इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर है, उसका एक फैक्ट्री नंबर 1 है जहाँ ड्यूटीएबल गुड्स बनते हैं, फैक्ट्री नंबर 2 है जहाँ ड्यूटीएबल गुड्स बनते हैं, फैक्ट्री नंबर 3 है जहाँ पे एग्जाम गुड्स बनते हैं, एंड उसका एक आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट भी है जहाँ ड्यूटीएबल गुड्स बनते हैं. नाउ सर्विस 1 हैज़ बीन रिसीव्ड. सर्विस 1 विच इज़ एक्सक्लूसिवली फॉर फैक्ट्री 1 और उसके ऊपर सर्विस टैक्स है 14,000. तो क्या करोगे उसका? वो बोलता है, आई एम रीडिंग पॉइंट नंबर बी, the credit of service tax attributable as input service to a particular unit shall be distributed only to that unit. Service 1 which is exclusively for factory 1, service tax will be distributed only on factory 1. ये 14,000 पूरा का पूरा फैक्ट्री 1 के ऊपर डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो जाएगा. नाउ आई एम रीडिंग कंडीशन नंबर सी. The credit of service tax attributable as input service to more than one unit but not to all unit shall be distributed only among such units to which input service is attributable, and such distribution shall be pro rata on the basis of turnover of such unit during the relevant period to the total turnover of all such units to which such input service is attributable and which are operational in current year during the said relevant period. एग्जाम्पल करके मैं बोलता हूँ कि फैक्ट्री 1, फैक्ट्री 2, फैक्ट्री 3 एंड आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट का प्रीवियस ईयर टर्नओवर का फिगर्स मैंने दिया है 200 lakhs, 400 lakhs, 200 lakhs एंड 250 lakhs. Service 4, which is common for all factories and job worker, and service 5, which is exclusively for factory 1 and 2. Service 5, which is exclusively for factory 1 and 2. देखो ये क्या बोलता है, the credit of service tax attributable as input service to more than one unit but not to all the units. We have in all 4 factories, 1, 2, 3, 4. Service 5 is for more than one unit because it is for factory 1 and factory 2 but it is not for all the units. तो उसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैसे करेंगे, तो उसके प्रीवियस ईयर के प्रपोर्शन में करेंगे. मतलब ये कितना है 70,000 और ये कॉमन है 1 एंड 2 के लिए, तो यहाँ पे जाएगा अपॉन इंटू 2/6 और यहाँ पे जाएगा 70,000 इंटू 4/6. Service 5, which is for more than one unit but it is not for all the units, will be distributed over only those units in their previous year turnover. Then comes point number D. The credit of service tax attributable as input service to all the units shall be distributed to all the units pro rata on the basis of turnover of such during. Service 4, which is common for all the factories and job worker, 56,000. तो इसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैसे होगा, 56,000 इंटू 200 lakhs, 400 मतलब 600 lakhs, 800 lakhs एंड 200 lakhs मतलब 1 करोड़. तो इसका जाएगा 2/10, इसका जाएगा 56,000 इंटू 4/10, इसका जाएगा 56,000 इंटू 2/10 और इसका जाएगा 56,000 इंटू 2/10. एक ऐसा सर्विस है जो सब फैक्ट्रीज के लिए कॉमन है. इट विल बी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड इन द प्रीवियस ईयर टर्नओवर प्रोपोर्शन ओवर ऑल द फैक्ट्रीज. एक ऐसा सर्विस है जो खाली 2 के लिए, तो दोनों के प्रीवियस ईयर के प्रोपोर्शंस में खाली दोनों के ऊपर वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा. एक बार कंक्लूड करते हैं. सर्विस 1, विच इज एक्सक्लूसिवली फॉर फैक्ट्री 1, 14,000 will be distributed over only factory 1. Service 2, which is exclusively for factory 3, will be distributed only over factory 3. Service 3, which is exclusively for job worker, will be only distributed over job worker. जो सबके लिए कॉमन है वो सबके प्रीवियस ईयर के टर्नओवर में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा, और जो शायद 2 के लिए कॉमन है तो उनके दोनों के रेशोज में खाली वो टर्नओवर वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा. दैट इज व्हाट रूल 7 इज सेइंग, एंड टू दैट एक्सटेंट न्यू रूल 7 इज डिफरेंट. ओल्ड रूल 7 में वो बोल रहा था व्हेन इट इज फॉर मोर देन 1 यूनिट इट इज टू बी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड ओवर ऑल द यूनिट्स इन प्रीवियस ईयर टर्नओवर. अभी उसने उसको बहुत लॉजिकल बना दिया. अगर 4 में से 2 फैक्ट्रीज के लिए कॉमन है तो खाली वो 2 फैक्ट्रीज के ऊपर प्रीवियस ईयर के टर्नओवर में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा. अगर सबके लिए कॉमन है तो सबके ऊपर डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा इन द प्रोपोर्शन ऑफ प्रीवियस ईयर. सो दैट इज व्हाट A, B, C, D, E. Outsourced manufacturing unit shall maintain separate account for input service credit received from each of the input service distribution and shall use it only for payment of duty on goods manufactured for input service distribution concern. ये जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होगा इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर वॉट एवर इज डिस्ट्रीब्यूटिंग ओवर आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट, दैट क्रेडिट शुड बी यूज ओनली फॉर द गुड्स विच हैव बीन मैन्युफैक्चर्ड फॉर इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर. यहाँ पे वो बोलना चाहता है कि जॉब वर्कर 2 काम करता है. वो इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर के लिए भी काम करता है वो, और अपने खुद के ब्रांड नेम में भी गुड्स क्लियर करता है. नाउ इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर से जो क्रेडिट आया है वो इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर के गुड्स के लायबिलिटी के लिए खाली यूज होगा. दैट इज व्हाट द ई पॉइंट इज सेइंग. एफ पॉइंट, credit of service tax paid on input service available with input service distributor as on 31st March 2016 shall not be transferred to any outsourced manufacturing. ये जो न्यू रूल्स है वो 1 अप्रैल से एप्लीकेबल है. 31 मार्च के पहले आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरर का कंसेप्ट था नहीं, तो 31 मार्च के पहले नए रूल 7 के अंदर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नहीं होगा. एक्सप्लेनेशन. The provisions of this clause shall mutatis mutandis apply to any outsourced manufacturer for commencing production of goods on or after 1st April. These new rules will become applicable to outsourced manufacturer from 1st April 2016 onwards. G. Provisions of Rule 6 shall not apply to units manufacturing goods or provider of output service and shall not apply to input service distributor. This is very important. Now the point is like this. I have factory 1, I have factory 2, and I have factory 3. Factory 1 is manufacturing dutiable goods, factory 2 is manufacturing dutiable goods, and factory 3 is manufacturing exempt goods. Some service has been provided, and that has been provided to factory 3. Service charge 1 lakh, service tax 14,500, 1,14,500. But invoice has been raised on input service distributor. Please understand, factory 3 is manufacturing exempt goods. As per rule 6.1, if you are manufacturing exempt goods, SINVAT credit is not available. Whether, just a minute please, whether 6.1 is equally applicable to input service distributor, and the answer is no. G point बोलता है rule 6.1 is not applicable to input service distributor. In other words, though factory 3 is manufacturing exempt goods, input service distributor will book that credit 14,500 and he will distribute it over factory 3, because rule 6 is not applicable to input service distributor. Different is the issue that factory 3, based on this invoice, when they receive this credit, they will not be able to take SINVAT credit, but they will add it to their cost. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. सो एक बार उसको रिपीट करता हूँ. एंड दिस इज द ब्यूटी ऑफ दिस रूल्स. पुराने रूल्स में ये थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड इशू था. यहाँ पे वो बोलता है एक पर्टिकुलर सर्विस प्रोवाइडर ने फैक्ट्री 3 को सर्विस प्रोवाइड किया. फैक्ट्री 3 इज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एग्जाम गुड्स. सर्विस प्रोवाइडर ने सर्विस फैक्ट्री 3 में प्रोवाइड किया, बट इनवॉइस हेड ऑफिस के ऊपर रेज कर दिया. Invoice is like this, 1,14,500, 1,14,500. Now, normally rule 6.1 says, 6.1 of SINVAT credit rule says, if your final product is exempt, SINVAT credit is not available. Whether that rule is equally applicable to input service distributor, answer is no. In other words, input service distributor will still book that credit of 14,500 and distribute it over factory 3. Different is the issue that factory 3 will not avail it as SINVAT credit, they will add it to their cost. So from the input service distributor point of view, accounting has become more simple. So that was G, and then there are some explanation. Explanation 1. For the purpose of this rule, unit includes the premises of provider of output service or the premises of manufacturer, including the factory, whether registered or otherwise, or the premises of outsourced manufacturing unit. So you may have factories, you may have premises from where you are providing service, and you may have outsourced manufacturer. All of them will be considered as unit. Explanation 2. For the purpose of this rule, total turnover shall be determined in the same manner as determined under Rule 5, provided that the turnover of outsourced manufacturing unit shall be the turnover of goods manufactured by such outsourced manufacturing unit for the input service distributor. That is one very, very important point. मेरे वाले एग्जाम्पल में मैंने बोला था प्रीवियस ईयर के टर्नओवर्स देखो, फैक्ट्री 1 का टर्नओवर है 200 लैक्स, फैक्ट्री 2 का टर्नओवर है 400 लैक्स, फैक्ट्री 3 का टर्नओवर है 200 लैक्स, आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरर का टर्नओवर है 250 लैक्स, बट उसका एक ब्रेकअप अवेलेबल है. 200 lakhs is for input service distributor and 50 lakhs is for his own. जॉब वर्कर दो काम करता है, इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर के लिए भी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करता है और खुद का भी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करता है. तो उसका टर्नओवर कितना पकड़ने का, टोटल टर्नओवर पकड़ने का, या वॉट एवर ही हैज डन फॉर द इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर. एक्सप्लेनेशन 2 का प्रोवाइजो बोलता है प्रोवाइडेड दैट द टर्नओवर ऑफ एन आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट शैल बी टर्नओवर ऑफ गुड्स मैन्युफैक्चर्ड बाय सच आउटसोर्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट फॉर द इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर. While doing the calculation, you have to ignore 250 and you have to consider 200 lakhs as the turnover. जॉब वर्कर का जो अपना खुद का टर्नओवर है उसको नहीं काउंट करने का है. Explanation 3. For the purpose of this rule, relevant period. Who decided why I am taking this previous year figures? Who gave me that permission? Explanation 3. For the purpose of this rule, relevant period shall be if the assessee has turnover in the financial year preceding to the year during which credit is to be distributed for month, quarter, as the case may be, said financial year, or if the assessee does not have turnover for some or all the units in the preceding financial year, last quarter, for which details of turnover of all the units are available previous to the month or the quarter for which credit is to be distributed. If second year onwards, there is no problem. Your previous year turnover will be taken as the base for distribution. But if this is first year, wait for first month to get over. From second month onward, you can use earlier month's turnover as base for distribution. Explanation 4 was the definition of outsourced manufacturer, which we have already completed. So that is the new rule 7 in the amended form. एक बार न्यू रूल 7 का मेथड ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन खाली डिस्कस करते हैं. न्यू रूल 7 के जो दो नए पॉइंट्स हैं वो खाली डिस्कस करते हैं. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर कैन डिस्ट्रीब्यूट द सिनवैट क्रेडिट ओवर हिज फैक्ट्रीज, ओवर हिज प्रीमाइसेस एंड over his outsourced manufacturing unit also. What is outsourced manufacturing unit? It's a job worker who is producing goods under your own brand name, whose valuation is done under section 4A MRP based assessment, whose valuation is done under section 10A, that is outsourced manufacturer. Distribution कैसे होगा? पहला बात है कि पर्टिकुलर फैक्ट्री के लिए जो सिनवैट क्रेडिट है वो उसी फैक्ट्री के ऊपर डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा. दूसरा बात है कि जो ऑल फैक्ट्रीज के लिए कॉमन है वो ऑल फैक्ट्रीज के प्रीवियस ईयर टर्नओवर में होगा. तीसरा बात है विच इज़ फॉर मोर देन वन फैक्ट्रीज बट नॉट टू ऑल, वो ओनली ऑन दो सिलेक्टेड फैक्ट्रीज के प्रीवियस ईयर के टर्नओवर में होगा. टोटल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैनॉट बी मोर देन टोटल क्रेडिट अवेलेबल. एंड रूल 6(1) इज नॉट एप्लीकेबल टू इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड रूल 7 here on page number, the definition of input service distributor, and rule 7 is on page number 289 and 290. Also, based on this, I have solved one problem for you on page number 291 and 292. I have solved this problem step by step, giving reasoning at each place, and I think I have made it very easy problem to understand. I have made it very, very student friendly. If at all possible in the examination, this kind of a problem is expected problem. Please go through this problem. The problem with solution with stepwise answer is given on page number 291 and 292. Please complete input service distributor. Now we are planning to study annexure 3. Before we study annexure 3, let us understand something. In my book, we have already studied this portion. I am talking about rule 6(1), rule 6(2), rule 6(3) and rule 6(4) of Sinvat credit rules. As you remember, in the normal lecture we have already studied that, and it was on page number 183, 184. As you can see on page number 183 was rule 6(1). Also 6.4. So 6.1 and 6.4 was on page number 183. 184 6.6, 185 6.7, 185 6.8 and 186 6.2, and from 187 onward 6.3 started. We already have studied these rules, but as you know, they are completely amended. What we have learnt in the book was in old form, which was applicable up to 20th of February 2016. But all these rules which I have mentioned have been completely amended from 1/3/2016. What we are studying in Annexure 2 is same rules. So which rules we are going to study? Rule 6.1, Rule 6.2, Rule 6.3, Rule 6.4 and Rule 6.3a. All these rules we are going to study which as an Annexure 3, which is from page 293 onwards, and it is amended from 1/3/2016. Having said that, let us study these rules in the amended form. Now I am on page number 293. Here what I can see is Rule 6.1 as amended from 1st March 2016. Let us read Rule 6.1. The Sinvat credit shall not be allowed on such quantity of inputs as is used in or in relation to the manufacture of exempt goods or for provision of exempt services, or input service as it is used in or in relation to the manufacture of exempt goods and their clearance up to place of removal or for the provision of exempt services. We already know about this, and this portion is not at all amended. What he is trying to say, are you a person? What Rule 6.1 is saying, even in the amended form, are you a person? You are manufacturing FP1 and FP1 is dutiable, or you are manufacturing FP2 which is exempt, and then there is a difference of the treatment. If you are manufacturing FP1, let us talk, you are talking about a single product manufacturer. I am saying you are a person, you are manufacturing a single product FP1 and FP1 is dutiable. You have purchased inputs, excise duty paid, you have purchased input services, service tax paid. Is your final product dutiable? Full Sinvat credit is available. Same way, if you are providing OS1, which is taxable service, I'll repeat, you have purchased inputs, excise duty paid, you have purchased input service, service tax paid, and that you have used for provisioning of OS1, and OS1 is a taxable service. In that case also, full Sinvat credit is available. Now I talk negative. Suppose we are talking about one person, he is manufacturing FP2, and for whatever reason FP2 you don't have any excise duty liability, FP2 is exempt product. You have purchased inputs, excise duty paid, you have purchased input services, service tax paid, and you have used it for manufacture of final product 2, which is exempt, no Sinvat credit is allowed. Same way, if you are a person, you are providing OS2, you have purchased inputs, excise duty paid, you have purchased input services, service tax paid. These inputs and input services you have used for provisioning of OS2, and OS2 is exempt. Sinvat credit is denied to you. Rule 6.1, even in the amended form, what we have studied till now, has the same interpretation. If you are a single product manufacturer and your product is dutiable, full Sinvat credit is available to you. If you are a single product manufacturer and your final product is exempt, no Sinvat credit is available to you. If you are providing a single service and your service is taxable, then full Sinvat credit is available to you. If you are providing a service and your service is exempt service, no Sinvat credit is available to you. Even in the amended form, Rule 6.1 is talking the same thing. As far as final product is concerned, Services will qualify as input service which have been used in or in relation to manufacture of final product which is dutiable and clearance of such final product up to place of removal. So input services will qualify up to place of removal. So that is the interpretation of rule 6.1. But to that something more is added. The credit not allowed shall be calculated and paid by the manufacturer or the provider of output service in terms of provisions of sub-rule 2, sub-rule 3 as the case may be. Now he says, I know if you are single product manufacturer and your final product is dutiable, full Sinvat credit is available to you. If you are single service provider and your service is taxable service, full Sinvat credit is available to you. If you are providing a service which is exempt service, no Sinvat credit is available to you. If you are manufacturing a final product which is exempt, no Sinvat credit is available to you. But how to handle this situation? I am talking about one person who is manufacturing FP1 which is dutiable. He is also manufacturing FP2 which is exempt. He is also providing OS1 which is taxable. He is also providing OS2 which is exempt. He is getting so many inputs, excise duty paid. He is getting so many input services, service tax paid. Now how to handle Sinvat credit? And for that he says go to 6.2 and 6.3. They will answer your question. How to handle this situation will be answered by rule 6.2 and 6.3. That is what he is saying. एक बार इसको वापस पढ़ते हैं. I am on page 293. Now I am reading rule 6.1 again for you. The Sinvat credit shall not be allowed on such quantity of input as is used in or in relation to the manufacture of exempt goods or for provision of exempt services, or input service as is used in or in relation to the manufacture of exempt goods and their clearance up to place of removal, or for provision of exempt services. And the credit not allowed shall be calculated and paid by the manufacturer or provider of output service in terms of provisions of sub-rule 2 or sub-rule 3 as the case may be. If you are a single product manufacturer, I know how to handle Sinvat credit. But if you are doing multiple activities like this, your answer how to handle this situation will be given by 6.2 and 6.3. That is what we have understood. To this, there is one proviso. This proviso we will study separately after 5 minutes. First, let us complete all the explanations. Explanation 1. For the purpose of this rule, exempt goods or final product as defined in clause D and H of rule 2 shall include non-excisable goods cleared for consideration from the factory. If you remember, what is the definition of exempt service? If because of exemption notification issued under section 93.1 or 93.2, if your particular service has become exempt, that is what we call it as exempt service. Also, exempt service means a service which is negative service, because वहाँ पे लिखा था the service which has been excluded from the service tax liability by charging section 66B, and last में उसने लिखा था कि the service on which abatement has been allowed subject to denial of Sinvat credit of input and input service, then such service will also called as exempt service. एक बार exempt service का definition याद करते हैं. What do you mean by exempt service? The definition we have already studied thoroughly, and the definition is on page number 139 top. second definition here, exam service. एक बार इसको याद करते हैं. What do you mean by exam service? I am on page number 139. Exam service means a taxable service which is exempt from whole of the service tax leviable thereon. Because of issue of exemption notification under section 93(1) or 93(2), if there is no service tax liability on a particular service, it is called as exempt service. Then second point, services on which no service tax is leviable under section 66B of Finance Act. 66B was charging section. If you remember charging section 66B, it said you don't have any service tax liability on negative services. Conclusion, I know there is a difference between negative services and exempt services, but for the purpose of SINVAT credit rules, they will remain the same. In other words, for the purpose of SINVAT credit rules, negative services are also exempt services. Third portion, taxable services whose part of value is exempted on the condition that no credit of input and input service used for providing such taxable service shall be taken. I think we have already studied this, but एक बार मैं आपको उसको याद दिलाता हूँ. I am talking about service 1. Service 1 abatement has been allowed. As you know, abatement is allowed by 26 of 2012. Mega exemption notification, master exemption notification, abatement notification, partial exemption notification 26 of 2012, which we call as abatement notification, which we already studied on page number 140. In that there are 12 services. Say for example, I am talking about service 1. In service 1, abatement has been allowed subject to condition. Abatement is allowed of 70%, so taxable value after abatement will be 30%, and this is subject to condition that SINVAT credit of input and input service has been denied. I am also talking about, for example, service 2. In service 2, for example, abatement was allowed of 60%, taxable value post abatement was 40%, and this is subject to condition that SINVAT credit of input is not allowed, but input service is allowed. Which one of these two is called as exempt service? Exempt service का third portion बोलता है, exempt service means a taxable service whose part of value is exempted on the condition that no credit of input and input service used for providing such taxable service shall be taken. In other words, if abatement is allowed subject to denial of both the SINVAT credit, then such service we call it as exempt service. So this is an exempt service, but this is not an exempt service. We have understood what do you mean by exempt service, which we have studied on page number 139. Now I come back to page 293. Explanation 1. For the purpose of this rule, exempt goods or final product as defined in clause D and H of rule 2 shall not include, I am talking about explanation 2, explanation 3. For the purpose of this rule, exempt services as defined in clause E of rule 2 shall include an activity which is not a service as defined in section 65B 44 of the Finance Act 1994, provided that such activity has used input or input services. I'll repeat. I am now reading page number 293, explanation 3. First we will complete explanation 3. Explanation 3, I'll read it once again for you. For the purpose of this rule, exempt service as defined in clause E of rule 2 shall include an activity which is not a service as defined in section 65B 44 of Finance Act 1994, provided that such activity has used input or input services. Now the point is very simple. If you remember, 65B 44 was definition of a service. It has excluded certain services from the view of services. For example, services provided by president, by common parlance, it's a service. but definition of service has excluded it from that. I will give you one more example. There is one chartered accountant. He is a practicing chartered accountant, but he also contested elections and now he is being elected as a corporator. As a corporator, he is providing so many services to the ward, and for that he is getting compensated. Now as you know, even corporators are getting paid some amount. Now this qualifies as service, but definition of service 65B44 has excluded definition of a corporator from the basic service. Now the issue is like this. This is a chartered accountant and he is providing two services. One, OS1. This is the normal CA services, which is taxable. On this he is always paying service tax. Also, as a corporator, as an elected corporator, he is providing certain services, and as you know, this is not exempt service. This has been excluded from the definition of service. There is a value attached. Now the question is, if he is providing exempt service, on value of exempt service 6% is payable, 7% is payable, but this is not exempt service. This is excluded from the definition of the service. Whether on the value of this service also, whether 7% will become payable, and the answer is given by explanation 3. Explanation 3 says, even if he is doing some activity which is excluded from the definition of service, on the value of such service also you will have to pay 7%. That is the meaning of this. Explanation 3 says, for the purpose of these rules, exempt services as defined in clause E of rule 2 shall include an activity which is not a service as defined in section 65B44 of Finance Act 1994, provided that such activity has used input or input services. If this gentleman, so I will give one example. I am talking about one person. He is doing three activities. OS1 is taxable. OS2 is exempt. And he is also providing OS3. OS3 is not even a service. Because of the 65B44 exclusion part, OS3 has been excluded from the definition of service. But for providing all these three, he is getting common inputs, excise duty paid, he is getting common input services, service tax paid. These inputs and input services are not only used for OS1 which is taxable, it is also used for OS2 which is exempt, and it is also used for OS3. Here OS3 is not even a service because it is excluded from the definition of service by section 65B44. Even OS3 will be considered as exempt service for the purpose of SINVAT credit rules. That is what explanation 3 is saying. Now I will read explanation 4 first. Value of such an activity as specified above in explanation 3 shall be the invoice, agreement, contract value, and where such value is not available, such value shall be determined by using reasonable means consistent with principles of valuations contained in Finance Act 1994 and rules made thereunder. Hello, how do you value services? When I value OS1, I will read section 67 and service tax valuation rules, and I will find out the value of OS1. Because on this value 14.5% will become payable. How do you value OS2? Remember, OS2 is exempt. Same principles of section 67 read with service tax valuation rules are to be applied, and you will find out value of OS2 also. Now how to value OS3? And he says same principles of section 67 read with service tax valuation rules are to be applied, and you have to find out the value of OS3 also. That is what he is saying in explanation 4. Now let us read explanation 1. Explanation 1. For the purpose of this rule, exempted goods or final product as defined in clause D and H of rule 2 shall include non-excisable goods cleared for consideration from the factory. The point is very simple. I am manufacturing 3 products. FP1 is dutiable, FP2 is exempt, and FP3 is non-excisable. The point is, you know how the product becomes exempt in excise. We have already studied definition of exempt goods on the same page. We have studied that. Definition of exempt goods we have already studied in my book. Definition we have studied on page number 139. Definition of exempt goods we have studied on page 139. Exempt goods. Exempt goods means excisable goods which are exempt from whole duty of excise leviable thereon. Under section 5A1 and 5A2 of Central Excise Act, from time to time some exemptions may be issued and those goods will become exempt goods, and includes goods which are chargeable to nil rate of duty. If you remember, in CETA, against some product it is written as nil. I know there is a difference between exempt goods and nil rate goods, but for the purpose of Synovat credit rules, they are one and the same thing. And goods in respect of which the benefit of exemption under notification number 1 of 2011 or 12 of 2012 is availed. We have already studied these notifications. If you are clearing goods under 1 of 2011, then on value of goods you are paying 2%. Though you are paying 2%, for the purpose of Synovat credit, the goods will be called as exempt goods. So that was the definition of exempt goods. So why I said that FP2 is exempt? Maybe because exemption notification has been issued under 5.1 and 5.2, or in CETA it is written as nil rate, or while clearing FP2 I am taking advantage of exemption notification 1 of 2011 or 12 of 2012. So in my case, FP1 is dutiable, FP2 is exempt, FP3 is non-excisable. I know that there is a difference between non-excisable goods and exempt goods. But he says, because of this explanation 1, for the purpose of Synovat credit rules, even non-excisable goods will get same treatment as exempt goods. That is what he is saying. I'll repeat the punchline once again. I know there is a difference between non-excisable goods and exempt goods. But for the purpose of Synovat credit rules, for the purpose of these rules, rules 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 and 6.3a, non-excisable goods will be considered as exempt goods. In other words, same treatment which we give to exempt goods will be equally applicable to non-excisable goods. Who said that? It is said in explanation 1. Let us read explanation 1 again. For the purpose of this rule, exempt goods or final product as defined in clause D and H of rule 2 shall include non-excisable goods cleared for consideration from the factory. In other words, if I am manufacturing final product 1 and final product 1 is dutiable, full Synovat credit is available to me. If I am manufacturing final product 2, single product manufacturer, and final product is exempt, no Synovat credit is available to me. And if I am a single product manufacturer and I am manufacturing FP3 and it is non-excisable, I know there is a difference between non-excisable goods and exempt goods, but for the purpose of Synovat credit rules, non-excisable goods will get same treatment of exempt goods, and that is the reason even Synovat credit for non-excisable goods will be denied to me. That is what he is saying in the explanation 1, conclusion of the explanation 1, non-excisable goods for the purpose of these rules will get same treatment like exempt goods. Now I will read explanation 2. Explanation 2, again we are experts of this. Suppose I am a person and I am manufacturing 3 products. FP1 which is dutiable, FP2 which is exempt, and FP3 which is non-excisable. When I clear FP1, I will have to find out value so that I pay proper excise duty. How do you find out value in excise? Section 3.2, Section 4A, Section 4.1A or Section 4.1B read with central excise valuation rules. All this knowledge I will apply and find out value of FP1. But suppose today I am clearing FP2. How do I find out value of FP2? And he says you apply same knowledge and find out value of FP2 also. Now how do you find out value of FP3? First time we are talking about valuation of non-excisable goods, and he says same knowledge you apply and find out value of FP3 also. So that is what it is written in explanation 2. Let us read explanation 2. Value of non-excisable goods for the purpose of this rule shall be invoice value. If it is already invoice, the value is given by invoice, very good, and we will take that as the value. But in the absence of that, and where such invoice value is not available, such value shall be determined by using reasonable means consistent with the principles of valuation contained in Excise Act and the rules made thereunder. Even while valuing non-excisable goods, if invoice value is available, please take invoice value as the value. But if for whatever reason invoice value is not available, apply same principles of Excise Act and determine value of non-excisable goods. That is what is written in explanation 1, explanation 2, explanation 3 and explanation 4. This is rule 6.1 of Sinvat credit rules. एक बार रूल 6.1 में अभी तक जो पढ़ा उसको रिवाइज करते हैं. If you are a single product manufacturer and your product is dutiable, Sinvat credit of input and input service will be available to you. If you are a single product manufacturer and your final product is exempt, Sinvat credit is denied to you. If you are providing a single service which is taxable service, full Sinvat credit will be available to you. If you are providing a single service which is exempt service, then no Sinvat credit is available to you. But if you are multiple products manufacturing and multiple services providing, some of the products are dutiable and some of the products are exempt, some of the services are taxable and some of the services are exempt, in that case, how to handle your situation? The answer is given by rule 6.4 and 6.3. 6.2, 6.3 and 6.4 will give you the answer. 6.2 and 6.3 will give you the answer. That is what is written. And then there are some explanations. Explanation says even non-excisable goods will get the same treatment like exempt goods. Also in the explanation it is written even services which have been, even the activities which have been excluded from the definition of service by 65B44 will also be treated as exempt service for the purpose of these rules. This is the conclusion of page number 293. Now I am talking about this proviso which we have kept pending. Proviso 293 page number, at the center side, this is the proviso which we have kept pending. Let us understand. Let us first read that. Provided that Sinvat credit of input shall not be denied to a job worker referred to in Rule 12AA of Central Excise Rules 2002 on the grounds that said inputs are used in the manufacture of goods cleared without payment of duty under provisions of that rule. Here I have reproduced Rule 12AA. 12AA is talking about job worker in articles of jewelry or other articles of precious metals. I will explain what happens there. Imagine that there is a principal manufacturer and there is a job worker. Principal manufacturer supplies him inputs and he is manufacturing final product. Final products is jewelry. Here, as you can see, it is talking about job worker in articles of jewelry or other articles of precious metal. As per rule 12AA, if you are a job worker of articles of jewelry or other articles of precious metal, liability to pay excise duty is shifted on principal manufacturer. Principal manufacturer will pay excise duty. Excise duty is not payable by job worker. Please understand, he has not even done procedure of 214 of 86 by right. If you are a job worker and manufacturing articles of jewelry, then liability to pay excise duty is always on principal manufacturer. But now look at this job worker. He has purchased certain inputs. See, the principal inputs will be supplied by principal manufacturer, but some small inputs he has purchased, excise duty paid, and some services he has availed, input services, service tax paid. Please understand, this job worker is not paying any excise duty, and because he is not paying excise duty, by operation of rule 6.1, SINVAT credit should not be available. But some exception has been created. Proviso says, provided that SINVAT credit of input shall not be denied to a job worker referred to in Rule 12AA of SINVAT of Central Excise Rules 2002 on the ground that said inputs are used in the manufacture of goods cleared without payment of duty under provisions of this rule. So basically he is talking only about inputs. He is not talking about SINVAT credit of input services. That is the first point to be noted. And he says, if you are a job worker, you are a job worker of jewelry, I know you are not paying excise duty, still this SINVAT credit will be available to you. Logically, what is going to happen? This job worker in his own capacity is also manufacturing jewelry. Whenever he clears that product, on that final product, on the value, he will be paying excise duty. He will end up using that SINVAT credit that time. Please understand, this job worker is doing two activities. One, he is working for principal manufacturer and manufacturing jewelry for him. But in his individual capacity also, he must be doing some manufacturing activities. So, these inputs on which excise duty has been paid, which have been used for jewelry, which he has manufactured for principal manufacturer, though he is not paying excise duty, still he will avail SINVAT credit because proviso has specifically allowed it, and this SINVAT credit he will end up using for his normal excise duty liability where jewelry he is manufacturing under his own capacity. That is the proviso which we have kept pending, which is an exception to Rule 6.1. So this is Rule 6.1 as amended form on page number 293. Please complete page number 293. Now I am talking about 6.2. 6.2 is talking about, here you can see 6.2 is talking about manufacturer who is exclusively manufacturing exempt goods. Actually, this point is already made clear by 6.1. This can be called as reiteration. Point blank, I am trying to tell you, 6.2 says, a manufacturer who is exclusively manufacturing exempt goods for their clearance up to place of removal, or a service provider who exclusively provides exempt services shall pay the whole amount of credit of input and input service and shall in effect not be eligible for credit of input and input service. This is just a reiteration. He is trying to tell you, categorically I am telling you, if you are manufacturing single product which is exempt, or you are providing single service which is exempt, no SINVAT credit of input and input service will be available to you. I will repeat. Are you a manufacturer and you are manufacturing a single final product which is exempt product, under no circumstances Synvadcate will be allowed to you. Or he is saying, are you a person who is providing a single service which is exempt service? Under no circumstances Synvad credit of input and input service will be allowed to you. That is what is written in the 6.2. Actually this point was already made clear by 6.1. So 6.2 I will say rather is a reiteration. Once more let us read 6.2 together. A manufacturer who exclusively manufacture exempt goods for their clearance up to place of removal, or a service provider who exclusively provides exempt services shall pay the whole amount of credit of input and input services and shall in effect not be eligible for credit of any input and input services. That is 6.2 in the amended form. It is on page number 294. Now I am on page number 295 and it is 6.4. 6.4 is talking about capital goods. Let us read 6.4. No Synvad credit shall be allowed on capital goods which have been used exclusively in the manufacture of exempt goods or in providing exempt services for a period of 2 years from the date of commencement of commercial production or provision of service as the case may be. This other than portion will address after 5 minutes. Let us complete the proviso first. Provided that where the capital goods are received after the date of commencement of commercial production or provision of service as the case may be, the period of 2 years shall be computed from the date of installation of such capital goods. What he is saying is like this. Today I have purchased one capital good and consecutive 2 years it has been used for manufacture of exempt goods, then no Synvad credit is available to me. He says, I have today purchased a capital goods which is used consecutively for 2 years for provisioning of a service which is exempt service, then also no Synvad credit is available to me. This is what rule 6.4 is saying. But यहाँ पे वो बोलता है कि एक प्रोवाइजो है, वहाँ पे बोलता है कि this period of 2 years should start from what date? If commercial production is already started and today you have purchased capital goods, then period of 2 years should start from the date of installation of capital goods. Alternatively, first you have purchased capital goods but commercial production started only after some time, then 2 years should start from the date commercial production started. Here with the example I am trying to explain that point. Case 1. Capital goods were purchased on 1/4/2016 but commercial production or provision of service as the case may be started on 1/1/2017. Many times it may happen that I am setting up my factory. Slowly I am purchasing different capital goods. So one of the capital good was purchased on 1st April 2016. I bought it. I was setting up my factory. I may have installed it also. But actually commercial production only could start on 1st January 2017. Setting up factory took 9 months. It seems that setting up of the factory took 9 months. Though I have purchased capital goods on 1st April, commercial production could only start on 1/1/2017. Now 2-year period should be calculated from which date? Period of 2 years to be calculated from 1/1/2017. Now I can give you second example, case 2. Commercial production or provision of service as the case may be started on 1/1/2017. But capital goods were purchased on 1/4/2017. Please understand, on 1st January I started my operations, I started manufacturing activities or I started providing the services also. After 3 months, one more capital good was required. I purchased it anew on 1st April 2017. Now period of 2 years should be calculated from the date when commercial production started or date of installation of capital goods. Here capital good was installed, capital good was purchased on 1st April but it was installed on 1st May. In that case period of 2 years should start from the date of installation of capital goods. In other words, first let us address this issue of 2 years. the period of 2 years should be calculated from the date when commercial production started, or the date on which capital good was installed, whichever is later. That is my conclusion. This is what rule 6.4 is saying. But what is basically rule 6.4 is saying? Basically rule 6.4 is saying, after having installed or commercially started the production, if capital good is used consecutively for 2 years for exempt goods or for provisioning of exempt services, Sinvat credit is denied to you. So to explain this, I have page number 296 for you. Let us understand 4 cases here. But before we understand 4 cases, let us have some assumptions. My first assumption that the word used year in 6.4 is a financial year and not a calendar year. I assume कि 6.4 में जो वो year की बात कर रहा है, he is talking about financial year. You know, financial year starts on 1st April up to 31st of March, and calendar year is 1st January to 31st December. Now, what do you mean by year? My first assumption is that year means financial year. Secondly, we are not talking about SSI, SSC. We are talking about normal SSC. Please understand, page number 295, we are studying rule 6.4. In that the proviso, this portion we have kept pending, which is talking about SSI. We are going to talk about it after 5 minutes. But just now I am talking about non-SSI, SSC. So here, page number 296, my 2 assumptions. Year means financial year, and second assumption, we are talking about normal SSC, a non-SSI SSC. Third assumption is that commercial production has already started, and the fourth assumption is capital goods is purchased and installed on 1st April 2016. 4 assumptions कर दिए. First of all, it is not calendar year, it is financial year. We are talking about non-SSI SSC. Commercial production has already started long back, and new capital good has been purchased and installed on 1st April 2016. Case 1. For finance year 2016 and 17 and 17 and 18, my final product remains dutiable. That means 6.4 is not applicable. 6.4 said, if capital goods are used for consecutive 2 years for manufacture of exempt goods, then only 6.4 is applicable and Sinvat credit is denied. But here, for consecutive 2 years, my capital goods remains dutiable. 6.4 is not applicable. Full Sinvat credit is available, of course, because it is capital good 50-50. Second case. For finance year 2016-17 and 17-18, capital goods remains exempt. Now 6.4 is applicable absolutely, because from the date of installation of capital goods for consecutive 2 financial years, the final product remains exempt. No Sinvat credit will be available to me in future. Even if my final product becomes dutiable, still I have lost full Sinvat credit. 6.4 is loud and clear. After having installed your capital goods for consecutive 2 years, if it is used for manufacture of exempt goods or for provisioning of exempt service, no Sinvat credit will be available to you. Case 2 is the perfect case for 6.4, and I have lost my Sinvat credit. Now some permutations, combinations. Case 3. For the first year 16-17, my final product was exempt. But on 1st April of 2017, capital goods become dutiable. Now what should be the treatment for Sinvat credit? Is 6.4 applicable? Please tell me. 6.4 is applicable if from the date of installation for consecutive 2 years, your final product is exempt. Here, first year final product is exempt, but second year final product is dutiable. 6.4 is not applicable. In the second year, after capital good had become dutiable, full Sinvat credit will be allowed. Here, one point we have to note. Assessee will have to pass journal entry. First year, if he has already added excise duty paid on capital goods to his cost, he will have to again file his income tax returns. He will have to pass journal entries, and the depreciation he has to reverse, subject to all those conditions, logically full SINVAT credit will be allowed to him because 6.4 is not applicable. Case 4, for finance year 2016-17 final product was dutiable, but for 17-18 it has become exempt. Whether 6.4 is applicable, and again I will repeat, after installation, if final product remains exempt for consecutive 2 years, then only SINVAT credit is denied. Here, in the first year, capital goods was used for manufacture of dutiable goods. So logically, now full SINVAT credit will be available. First 50% he must have availed in the first year. Second, he will avail on 1st April. Here, assessee will have to rethink about availing that SINVAT credit. If he is of the opinion that final product is going to remain exempt forever, there is no advantage of this SINVAT credit. This is an option available. But if your final product is going to remain exempt forever and you take 50% SINVAT credit, it will remain unutilized in your book and your cost sheet will be hit. So you have a choice. But choice is there whether to avail SINVAT credit or whether not to avail SINVAT credit. Study all these cases and I think point will become very clear. 6.4 conclude करता हूँ एक बार last time. After installation of capital goods or after commercial production has started, whichever is later, from that date, for 2 consecutive years, if capital goods are used for manufacture of exempt goods or for provision of exempt services, SINVAT credit of such capital good is not available. That is what 6.4 says. Now, let us complete that pending words. Other than the final product or output service which are exempt from whole of the duty of excise leviable thereon under any notification where exemption is granted based upon the value or quantity of clearance made or services provided in a financial year. This 6.4 is not applicable if your final product is exempt because you are SSI. एक बार पढ़ते हैं, other than final product or output service which are exempt from whole of the duty of excise leviable thereon under any notification where exemption is granted based upon value or quantity of clearance made or services provided in a financial year. If it is service tax, read it as SSP. If it is excise, read it as SSI. And if your final product is exempt because you are claiming SSI status or because you are claiming SSP status, this 6.4 is not applicable to you. So, I am SSI, I have purchased capital goods, my final product I am not paying any excise duty because I am SSI. And though I am not paying excise duty, still SINVAT credit will be available to me because 6.4 is not applicable to me. Also remember, for SSI, SINVAT credit becomes available 100% on day 1. So now we have completed rule 6.4. Please read page number 295 and 296. Now I am on page number 297. Let us now understand 6.3. First, let us understand why we came to 6.3. If you are a single product manufacturer and your final product is dutiable, how to handle that? We know in rule 6.1. But what if we are talking about a person? This person is manufacturing 2 products, FP1 which is dutiable, FP2 which is exempt. He is also providing OS1 which is taxable. He is also providing OS2 which is exempt. He is getting so many inputs, excise duty paid. He is getting so many input services, service tax paid. If this is your situation, how to handle it is given by 6.3. Let us read it. I am on page 297. I am reading 6.3. A manufacturer who manufacture 2 classes of goods, namely non-exempt goods and exempt goods, or a provider of output service who provide 2 classes of service, namely non-exempt services and exempt services, shall follow any one of the following options available to him. If you are this kind of a person, he says you have 2 options. One option is 6.3.1 option and second option is 632 option. We are going to study both. First option is 631 option. He says, shall follow one of the following options applicable to him, namely 631. Pay an amount equal to 6% of value of exam goods and 7% of value of exam services, subject to maximum of the sum total of opening balance of the credit of input and input services available at the beginning of the period to which the payment relates and the credit of input and input service taken during that period. He says, I know when you will bring inputs of excise duty, take full SINVAT credit. These inputs may have been used for FP1, these inputs may have been used for OS1, these inputs may have been used for FP2, they have been used for OS2. Irrespective of whether they have been used for dutiable goods or exam goods, or whether they have been used for taxable services or exam services, all excise duty paid on inputs and all service tax paid on input services, you avail full SINVAT credit. Now, whenever you will clear FP1 on the value of FP1, because FP1 is dutiable, you will always pay excise duty. But whenever you clear FP2, remember FP2 is exempt. Why FP2 is exempt? Because it may be exam goods, or it may be nil rate goods, or you may have paid excise duty under 1 of 2011 or 12 of 2012, or they may be even non-excisable goods. If FP2 is exempt goods, apply same principles of valuation and find out value of FP2, and on value of FP2 pay 6% as liability under rule 631 of SINVAT credit rules. Same way, whenever you will provide OS1, on value of OS1 you will pay applicable rate of service tax. But whenever you provide OS2, I know OS2 is exempt service, but still on value of OS2 you pay 7% as liability under 631. That is what he is saying. Because you have taken some wrong SINVAT credit, on exam goods you pay 6% and on exam services you pay 7%. But यहाँ पे उसने qualify किया है, your liability under 631 cannot exceed total SINVAT credit that is available to you. What is total SINVAT credit that is available to you? Opening balance of SINVAT credit plus all the SINVAT credit that you have availed during this month. He says your liability under 631, that is total of this 6% and total of this 7%, cannot exceed total SINVAT credit that is available to you. That is what the option given in 631. एक बार इसको वापस पढ़ते हैं. 631. I am on page number 297. A manufacturer who manufactured two classes of goods, namely non-exempt goods removed and exempt goods removed, or a provider of output service who provide two classes of services, namely non-exempt services and exempt services, shall follow any one of the following options applicable to him. You have two options, either 631 or either 632. 631. Pay an amount equal to 6% of value of exam goods or 7% of value of exam services, subject to maximum of the sum total of opening balance of credit of inputs and input services available at the beginning of the period to which the payment relates and the credit of input and input services taken during the period. On exam products, you pay 6%. On exam services, you pay 7%, but your total liability of this 6% plus this 7% cannot exceed total SINVAT credit that is available to you. And what is total SINVAT credit available to you? Total SINVAT credit available to you at the beginning of the month, the opening balance of SINVAT credit plus whatever you have availed during this month. That is your total SINVAT credit, and your liability under 631 cannot exceed this total. That means you don't have to pay negative. It is restricted to your total SINVAT credit. That is 631. 632. Pay an amount as determined under sub-rule 3A. You have one more option. Instead of paying 6% or 7%, you can follow the procedure given by 63A, that is also acceptable to us. एक मिनट जरा बात को समझना. The procedure of 63A we are going to study separately immediately after some time. It starts on page 301. Procedure of 63A starts on page 301, 302, 303, 304 and 305, and we will complete that procedure. Let us keep that procedure pending, which we are going to study only after 10 minutes. First, let us complete all the provisions here. Provisions are given on page number 297 and explanations are given on page number 298. What I am trying to say, you have two options, either 631 option or 632 option. 632 option is nothing but following procedure given by 63A. We are going to learn that independently after some time. Before that, let us complete page 297 and 298. We have understood 631, we have understood 632. To that, there are some provisos. I am reading the first proviso. Provided that if any duty of excise is paid on exempt goods, same shall be reduced from the amount payable under clause 1. Very interesting. We have also studied this once in the old rules. We are talking about one person who is manufacturing FP1, which is dutiable, and is also manufacturing FP2, which is exempt. He is getting so many inputs, excise duty paid, he is getting so many input services, service tax paid, and he has availed full SINVAT credit. Because he has availed full SINVAT credit on FP2, whenever he will clear that on value, he is going to pay 6%. But now let me tell you why FP2 is exempt. FP2 is exempt because he has availed 1 of 2011. If 1 of 2011 he has availed, on the value he must have paid 2%. If you remember, 1 of 2011 was an exemption notification. We have already completely studied that. If you want to avail this exemption notification 1 of 2011, whatever is the rate given in CETA, you have to ignore it, and on the value of the goods 2% is payable. This is subject to condition that SINVAT credit is denied to you. Now, exempt goods के definition में लिखा था, if you are opted for exemption notification 1 of 2011 or 12 of 2012, then your goods will be considered as exempt goods. So now I say why FP2 is exempt goods. FP2 is exempt goods because you have opted for 1 of 2011 or 12 of 2012. If you are opted for 1 of 2012, you must have paid 2%, then your liability of 6% will be reduced to that extent and you need to pay only 4%. यहाँ पे वो लिखता है provided that if any duty of excise is paid on exempt goods. Hello, exempt goods means you are not paying any duty. What are the two examples where on exempt goods you are paying duty? I think there are only two examples. One is 1 of 2011 and second is 12 of 2012. He says if your final product is exempt because you have opted for 1 of 2011 or 12 of 2012, then from this liability of 6%, whatever you have paid under that notification will be reduced and you have to pay only net. So if I have cleared goods claiming 1 of 2011, my liability of 6% will be reduced to the extent of 2%, and as a liability of 631, I will have to pay only 4%. That was the first proviso. Now I am reading the second proviso. Provided further that if any part of value of taxable service has been exempted on the condition that no SINVAT credit of input services used for providing such taxable service shall be taken, then amount specified in clause 1 shall be 7% of value so exempted. This also we have studied under old rule. This is also not a new proviso, but I will explain it once again. I am a person who is providing two services. I am providing OS1, which is taxable, and I am also providing OS2, which is exempt. but I am getting so many inputs, excise duty paid, I am getting so many input services, service tax paid, and across I have taken full sin VAT credit. Now, whenever I clear OS1 on its value, I will pay service tax, and whenever I will clear OS2 on its value, I am supposed to pay 7%. But here, let me tell you why OS2 is exempt. OS2 is exempt because I have opted for abatement. If you remember, if abatement was granted subject to denial of sin VAT credit of input and input services, then such service is called as exempt services. I will repeat my point. Why OS2 is exempt? Because it is abated service. Now, for example, value of service provided was 1 lakh. I have taken abatement of 70%, that is 70,000 abatement, and on balance 30%, I have paid service tax at applicable rate. I will repeat, total value of service provided was 1 lakh, abatement was 70%, so 70,000 abatement I have taken, and on balance 30%, that means 30,000 only, I have paid service tax. Now, because this is exempt service, 7% will become value of service, but whether on full 1 lakh or whether only on 70,000. And he says, provided further that if any part of the value of taxable service has been exempted on the condition that no sin VAT credit of input service used for providing such taxable service shall be taken, then amount specified in clause 1 shall be 7% of value so exempted. Here value exempted was only 70,000, so 7% will be payable only on 70,000. In other words, if it is exempt service because of abatement, 7% is payable not on full value, 7% is payable only on abated value. That is the second proviso. Now I read the third proviso. Provided also that in case of transportation of goods or passenger by rail, the amount required to be paid under clause 1 shall be an amount equal to 2% of value of exempt service. Normally, if it is exempt service, then 7% is payable. But if it is a particular service, railway service, transportation of goods or passenger by railway, read not it as 7%, read it as 2%. Special dispensation for railways. For railways, it is 2%, not 7%. Here, on bottom of this page, there is one press release. We'll read it after 5 minutes. Let us first complete explanations which are there on page 298. Explanation 1. If the manufacturer of goods or the provider of output service avails any of the options under this sub-rule, he shall exercise such option for all exempted goods manufactured by him, as the case may be, all exempted services provided by him, and such option shall not be withdrawn during remaining part of the financial year. Now we have two options, 631 option and 632 option. It is not possible that for some goods you opt for one option and for some goods you opt for another option. No, one of these options you have to accept for full in toto, and once you accept that option, you cannot change the option in the same financial year. Explanation 2. No sin VAT credit shall be taken of duty or tax paid on any goods and services that are not input or input services. If you remember, for example, rent a cab service is not an input service. Just because I have come in this scheme, I cannot take sin VAT credit of a service which does not qualify as input service for me. Suppose for construction of my office or for construction of my factory, I have purchased some cement. If you remember definition of inputs, there was excludes portion. Cement which I have purchased for construction of factory will never qualify as input. Under this scheme, if I have purchased cement, can I take sin VAT credit of cement? Excise duty paid on cement? He says no. Even if you are in this scheme, take sin VAT credit of only those goods which qualify as your inputs and only those services which qualify as your input service. Just because you are coming in this scheme don't try to take Sinvat credit of those articles which does not qualify as input for you, or the services which does not qualify as input service for you. That was explanation 2. And explanation 3 hardly means anything. He says first time we are using non-exempted goods. So what do you mean by non-exempted goods? All goods other than exempt goods are non-exempted goods. Also he says first time we are using the word non-exempted services. So what is non-exempted services? Any service other than exempt service is non-exempted services. So explanation 3 is rather clarificatory in nature. Please read explanation 3 yourself. We have completed rule 631. 632 is pending. 632 is nothing but procedure given by 63A. Please complete study of page number 297 and 298. Just now we have completed 631. What is this page 299 and 300? Based on 631, because it is amended, some questions are possible. What I have done here on page 299, I have given you some question with solution. It is explained so nicely. I think this is self-explanatory. For your practice, read the question, try to solve it yourself and then check the answer. It will be good for you. Page 299 and page number 300 is problem and solution based on 631. Now, let us study 63A. Before we study 63A, let us understand how we came to 63A. 63A, we are talking about one person who is providing who is manufacturing non-exempt goods. He is also manufacturing exempt goods. He is providing non-exempted services. He is also providing exempted services. He is purchasing so many inputs, excise duty paid. He is purchasing so many input services, service tax paid. Across, he has taken full Sinvat credit, but he is not happy with 631. He is not interested in paying that 6% or 7%. Welcome to 63A. एक बार repeat करता हूँ. We are talking about one person who is manufacturing dutiable goods. He is also manufacturing exempt goods. He is providing taxable services. He is providing exempt services. He is getting so many inputs, excise duty paid. He is getting so many input services, service tax paid. Across full Sinvat credit he has availed, and he is not interested in 631. What was 631? Paying 6% on value of exempt goods and paying 7% on value of taxable services. He is not interested in that option. Then he has a second option. That option is given by 632, and the option is to follow the procedure given by 63A. I am on page number 301. We are opted to follow the procedure given by 63A. First step that he is supposed to do is only administrative in nature. He is supposed to give certain information to the department. I will read that for you. I am on page number 301. I am reading procedure of 63A. First step. For determination of amount required to be paid under clause 2 of subrule 3, the manufacturer of goods or the provider of output service shall follow the following procedure and conditions. If you have decided to opt for 63A, following is the procedure for you. Point number A. The manufacturer of the goods or the provider of output service shall intimate in writing to the superintendent of central excise giving the following particulars. First, you have to inform the department. You have to write a letter to superintendent of central excise having jurisdiction over you. Sir, I am opting for procedure of 63A, and along with that, point number 1 to 5, all that information you are supposed to provide. Rather technical in nature, please read it for yourself. What is the format of declaration to be made by the assessee if you are opting for procedure of 63A? It is given by point number 1 to 5. Please read it yourself. Now we will start with the procedure. The procedure in English, I have given it here on page number 301, 302 and 303. I am going to explain you that with the help of a chart. Let us understand the chart. total credit of inputs and input services taken during the month, we have marked it as T. T stands for total. Please understand, you have got so many exempted goods, non-exempted goods, you have got so many exempted goods, you have got so many exempted services, you have got so many non-exempted services, you have purchased so many inputs, excise duty paid, you have got so many input services, service tax paid, across full CINVAT credit that you have availed during the month. We are going to mark it as T. Total credit of inputs and input services taken during the month, we have marked it as T. Now we'll calculate our liability. Here the method remains the same as we have learnt last time in the old rules. Every month you have to calculate your liability on provisional basis and pay it to the department. While calculating the provisional liability, you have to use previous year figures for the ratios. Having done this exercise 12 months, at the end of the month, once your books of accounts are ready, you are supposed to calculate your actual liability. While calculating actual liability, you have to take current year figures and then compare your actual liability with the provisional liability. First, let us learn here how to calculate your provisional liability. Provisional liability is to be calculated every month. So, this T is total CINVAT credit of inputs and input services that you have availed during this month. So, what is T here? Total CINVAT credit that you have availed of excise duty paid on inputs that you have purchased and CINVAT credit of service tax of input services that you have purchased during the month, that I have marked it as T. First step, you have to find out excise duty and service tax, that is in or in relation to input and input services, which has been exclusively used for exempt goods and exempt services. Obviously, it is ineligible and we mark it as A. What is A? Excise duty paid on inputs, service tax paid on input services, which has been used exclusively for exempt goods and exempt services. We are going to mark it as A. Then, excise duty and service tax of input and input services, which is exclusively used for non-exempt goods or non-exempted services. Obviously, it is eligible and we mark it as B. Here, what we are talking about is excise duty paid and service tax paid on input and input services, which has been used for dutiable goods and duty and taxable services. Obviously, that is your eligible credit. We have marked it as B. Now what we are going to do, we are going to find out common credit. If you remove CINVAT credit of input and input services used for exempt goods and exempt services, and CINVAT credit which is used for input and input services which has been used exclusively for dutiable goods, what you are left with is the common credit. Common credit is equal to T, the total CINVAT credit that you have availed, minus A plus B. He says, out of the total credit, you reduce A, CINVAT credit which was used for exempt goods, and you reduce B, CINVAT credit which was used for dutiable goods, and what you are left with is a common credit. We mark it as C. There is one possibility that common CINVAT credit is equal to 0. If there is common CINVAT credit is equal to 0, the following procedure is not required and the procedure is over. But if common CINVAT credit is not 0, you have to continue with the procedure. Calculation of common credit attributable towards exempt goods removed or for provision of exempt services. For this, you are using preceding financial year figures. In the numerator is exempt service and exempt goods. In the denominator is the all goods. So denominator में जाएगा exempt goods, exempt services, taxable goods and taxable services. Total turnover will go in denominator, exempt turnover will go in numerator, and multiply it to the common CINVAT credit, and that is proportion of CINVAT credit which has gone into exempt goods and exempt services, which we mark it as D, and that is how we are calculated. एक बार मैं इसका लॉजिक, एक मिनट में आपको इसका लॉजिक देता हूँ। देखो वेरी सिंपल है, जैसे कि मेरा प्रीवियस ईयर का एग्जाम सर्विस है, प्रीवियस ईयर माई एग्जाम सर्विस इज 1 लाख, एंड प्रीवियस ईयर का मेरा टैक्सेबल सर्विस है 3 लाख रुपीस, और ये मंथ में इनपुट और इनपुट सर्विस का टोटल सिनवैट क्रेडिट दैट विच आई अवेल्ड इज 10,000 rupees. Based on previous year turnover, what should be my liability? My liability is Sinvat credit of input and input services which has been used for exam services. So exam service will go in numerator, total turnover will come into denominator and multiply by Sinvat credit. So here my answer will be 1 lakh upon 4 lakh into 10,000. So my liability will be 2,500. Same logic has been used here. कॉमन सिनवैट क्रेडिट जितना भी है उसमें से आपको एग्जाम गुड्स और एग्जाम सर्विसेज का प्रोपोर्शन फाइंड आउट करना है, एंड फॉर दैट यू हैव टू यूज प्रीवियस ईयर फिगर्स. सो वैल्यू ऑफ एग्जाम गुड्स एंड वैल्यू ऑफ एग्जाम सर्विसेज विल गो इन न्यूमरेटर प्रीवियस ईयर फिगर्स, डिनोमिनेटर में टोटल जाएगा इनटू कॉमन सिनवैट क्रेडिट. Answer will mark it as D. Then what is my liability? My liability is Sinvat credit that has been used of input and input services which has gone in manufacture of exam goods and exam services, that is equal to A, and common Sinvat credit में से exam का portion which is marked as D. So my provisional liability will be A plus D. What I am entitled for then? Sinvat credit which has gone in the manufacture of dutiable goods and taxable services, that is B, plus common में से D को माइनस करोगे तो जो बचेगा that is my eligible credit. Very common sense procedure. Here in English it is given on page number 301 and 302. This exercise I will be doing 12 times, and every month I will be calculating my liability provisional basis. Having done this exercise 12 times, at the end of the year when my current year figures are ready, now I will calculate my actual liability. Please understand, here we are not going to learn anything new. What we are going to learn is, instead of monthly figure it is going to be annual figure, and instead of previous year figures it is going to be current year figures. What I am trying to say here is like this: total Sinvat credit that I have availed in the annum is marked as T. Sinvat credit of excise duty and service tax which has gone in input and input services which has been exclusively used for exam goods and exam services is ineligible. Annual, it is A. Sinvat credit of dutiable goods and dutiable services is eligible. I have marked it as B. So what is common Sinvat credit? Common Sinvat credit will be T annual minus A annual minus B annual. If common Sinvat credit on actual basis is 0, procedure is over. But if there is something left in common Sinvat credit, same proportions will be applied, but this time it will be done by using current year figures. Current year turnover of exam goods and exam services will go in numerator, and total turnover of the current year will go into denominator. We will multiply it by common Sinvat credit, and whatever comes we have marked it as D, and that is my annual liability. My annual liability will be A plus D. What is A? Sinvat credit of input and input services which has been used for exam goods and exam services, plus proportion in common Sinvat credit which has been used for exam goods and exam services. A plus D will be my actual liability, and what I am eligible for is B plus C minus D. That is my eligible credit. Having done this exercise, now last step of the procedure is same as what we have learned last time. If what you have paid provisionally is less than your actual liability, differential amount you will have to pay with interest without interest by 30th of June. If what you have paid provisionally is more than what your actual liability is, excess paid, you can take it back as Sinvat credit. Where it is written, this procedure which I have already explained you with the chart is given on page number 302 and page number 303 and page number 304. And then we come to This portion, page number 305, 304. The manufacturer or the provider of output service shall pay on or before 30th of June of succeeding financial year an amount equal to difference between total amount of annual ineligible credit and annual ineligible common credit and the aggregate amount of ineligible credit and ineligible common credit for the period of whole year, namely A annual plus D annual, A plus D aggregate of the whole year, where the former of the two amount is greater than the later. What he says is like this. Suppose what you have paid provisionally is 1 lakh and your actual liability that you have calculated now is 1,20,000. Then balance 20,000 you have to pay by 30th of June. If you pay it by 30th of June, you have no interest liability. Where it is written, page number 304, point number D at the top. Then what point number E is saying, where the amount under clause D is not paid by 30th of June. He says, if the differential amount you have paid by 30th of June of the next year, you have no interest liability. But if you have paid it after 30th of June, you have interest liability and interest at the rate of 15%. Remember, last time it was written 24%, but now it has been amended. If your provisional amount that you have paid is 1 lakh and final liability that you have worked out is 1,20,000, then you have to pay differential 20,000 by 30th of June. If you pay by 30th of June, you have no interest liability. But if you pay after 30th of June, now you have to pay with interest at the rate of 15%. फिर F point में वो क्या लिखता है? Provisionally that you have paid was 1,20,000. But when you calculated your final liability, actual liability, it came out to be 1 lakh. You have paid excess 20,000. बोलता है you can avail SINVAT credit of that 20,000. Where it is written in point number F. The manufacturer or the provider of output service shall at the end of the financial year take credit of amount equal to difference between the total amount of aggregate of ineligible credit and ineligible common credit paid during the whole year and the total of the amount of annual ineligible credit and annual ineligible common credit, namely A plus D, etc., where the former of the two amount is greater than later. If it is what you have paid provisionally is more than your actual liability, take it back the excess amount as SINVAT credit. G. The manufacturer of the goods or the provider of output service shall intimate to the Superintendent of Central Excise within period of 15 days from the date of payment or adjustment as per the provisions of above. And there is a format for that. Again, point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, you have one formality. Either because you have paid less, you must have paid excess amount, or if you have paid more, you must have taken it back as SINVAT credit. Whatever you have done in a format given in point number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, you have to give intimation to Superintendent of Central Excise. That is the procedure which we have done. This is the procedure of 6.3a and that completes the annexure 3. Here we have completed 301, we have completed 302, 303 and 304. Page number 306 and page number 307, again I have given some problems based on 6.3a. I have already given problem with the solution and they are quite self-explanatory. Please, I strongly advise you to read these questions, try to solve it yourself and then only check the answer. I think that will be good for you. This is annexure 3 which is completely amended and effective date was from 1/4/2016. Page number 305, there is something more to learn. 3AA, where the manufacturer or a provider of output service has failed to exercise the option. What he is saying, you are a person manufacturing dutiable goods and exempt services. Across you have taken Sinvat credit, but you have not followed the procedure. 3AA बोलता है, your officer will issue you show cause notice. He will give you chance and opportunity to complete the procedure and will recover the duty and interest, your liability under Sinvat credit rules with interest from you. That is what 3AA is saying. 3AB is very important. This new procedure is effective only, see, assessee who opted to pay an amount under clause 2, clause 3 of sub-rule of financial 2015-16. Agar this new procedure is come from 1st April 2016 only. If you are already opted for old procedure, then old procedure, old rules, your liability you can still pay by 30th of June. This new rule will be applicable to you only after 1st April assessees. And banking companies, 3AB was already there. If you are a banking company, last time I said likha tha, if you are a banking company, all this procedure is not for you. You pay straight away 50%. But now this time they have amended it. If you are a banking company, you have both the options. Either whatever is Sinvat credit you have availed, 50% you pay off and you are out of this procedure, or like any other assessee, follow the ratios. Both the options have been made available to banking. I'll explain. लास्ट रूल्स में लिखा था बैंकिंग के लिए एक ही ऑप्शन था, पूरा सिनवैट क्रेडिट अवेल करो और 50% गिव अप करो. बट अभी उसने दो ऑप्शंस दिया है, या तो पूरा सिनवैट क्रेडिट अवेल करके 50% गिव अप करो, या तो लाइक एनी अदर एसएससी वर्क इन द रेशियोज. बोथ द ऑप्शंस हैव बीन मेड अवेलेबल टू बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री. प्लीज रीड पेज नंबर 305 ऑल्सो. Because this is annexures, all these amendments are latest. Again I will say the same point ki they are applicable for our attempt, and how much questions come out of this in the examination, let us see. For that I strongly recommend that you should complete the study of all these annexures with full focus. Thank you.